Hey, it's the Nerdy Sports Fan, and we're finishing up draft grades today. We're getting into the AFC South. Let's start things off with the Colts. Now, we all know the free agency period, they added Phillip Rivers. There's questions on whether or not he's actually going to be effective. I mean, he didn't do exactly that great in San Diego, but they had an atrocious offensive line. They had a lot of skill position talent that he made great use of with Austin Eckler and Williams. The wide receiver core there is fantastic. Keenan Allen's one of the great tacticians in the league. But if you can't block for a guy that really can't move, you're going to be really, really hindering yourself. I really liked what the Chargers were able to do against teams like the Chiefs. They had really inventive things that they did on defense, and their offensive attack was spot on. But now he's going to a very, very different attack than what they've had the past couple of years, but a very familiar attack because Frank Reich was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs back in the day, and it's probably why they added Phillip Rivers in the first place. So this draft really needs to help the team from the Rivers perspective. And we start things off, they got Michael Pittman. I understand they absolutely need to develop more wide receiver talent outside of T.Y. Hilton. And Funches really wasn't the thing. But he was also getting, passes from I don't want to say inferior quarterback, but definitely not a quarterback that's as in tune with a up-tempo passing game as Rivers is. So Funches might actually do some good here. But Pittman, I feel like there were other receivers of a similar skill set that you could have gotten further down. You could have gotten a more unique talent, like a KJ Hamler. That would have been great. So I'm not very high on the Pittman pick. He does fill a need, though. So there's that at least. Jonathan Taylor was my favorite running back in the draft. He was great in college. Now, I get it. There might be a question of not having enough tread left on the tire because he's got 900 plus carries in his college career. But who the hell cares? You've got a stable of a couple of running backs, and it's going to make it so he's not exactly going to be getting these 20 plus carries a game sort of situations like you used to have at the running back position. So I love the pick. It coupled with one of the best offensive lines in football, he's going to go off. He's absolutely going to go off. He has the top gear that Marlon Mack is missing. This guy runs a 4.3, and he's got fantastic feet. He's going to make people miss, both in the hole and in open space. It's going to be a joy to watch him in Indianapolis. And in spite of him not being used for this very much in Wisconsin, he's a very capable receiver. When he was given opportunities, he did damage out of the backfield as a receiver. So that is going to fill the Eckler kind of role in this offense. And I think it makes the offense quite a bit more dynamic. So moving on, they ended up getting Julian Blackmun, safety, in the third round. And I like Blackmun. I like what he brings to this style of defense. It's a layer of the defense that needed to be addressed. You really needed to address the defensive backfield. The safeties were one of the weaker parts of the team in general. So adding some fresh talent is a good shot in the arm. This is a playoff caliber team. This is potentially a deep playoff run caliber team, and they would have been a legitimate Super Bowl contender were it not for Andrew Luck retiring at the beginning of the season. So you don't have to go crazy and draft necessarily just for need. You have to address need when it matches the value of the position you're at in the draft, And you're drafting for very specific traits at this point. So finding a safety that matches up perfectly with your defense is great value in the third round. Going further in, there's the question of Jacob Eason. So Washington, they've produced some quarterbacks that have gotten to the NFL in the past few years. And they haven't really done anything once they got to the NFL. He's got all the physical tools. You question the compete level. You question the level of competition that he had against him. And you don't really know what you have there until you get him in the pro system and you see what's going on in preseason. So Eason's all right. You do kind of need to address quarterback of the future. You don't necessarily need to do it this draft. You could do it next draft as well. We kind of know you don't have that role right now. And personally, I would have loved to see the Colts go after Jordan Love. They didn't. They let Green Bay trade in front of them and up and kind of assure that didn't become available to the Colts. So yeah, I guess that kind of further explains the Pittman pick. But yeah, Eason is a good filler for that role. He has potential. Not as much potential as Jordan Love for certain. He's not as likely to fulfill that potential as Jordan Love would be, but he does have potential. So getting him under a veteran quarterback who knows he really only has a year or two left anyway might be really good for him, and you know, he could pan out. So getting him where you got him, you could bring into question. There were a couple of mid-round quarterbacks that I'm not really sure why they were drafted, where they were drafted. I'm never honestly really sure why mid-round quarterbacks are drafted where they are drafted. It's very much that the team has to fall in love with a particular draftee. You know, a particular prospect has to scratch the itch of the coaching staff just the right way in order to make sense for them. I don't see a huge difference in the style of play between Eason and Rivers. He can't move, much like Rivers. So maybe they're just picking up a guy that's very, very similar to the guy they have, which Eason really probably is the most similar. Beyond that, I like Danny Pinter. I think that he has potential to be eventually a starting guard. Not on this line. He's going to be a depth player, a rotational player. He could eventually be a starter and allow you to let one of the veterans leave via free agency so you don't have to overload the books with the amount of money you're putting into the offensive line. That's always helpful. But yeah, he's not necessarily going to be an immediate impact this year unless, of course, someone gets injured. After that, you've got filler. Okay, 6th round picks rarely, if ever, make the roster. I would have liked to see defensive tackle addressed before the 6th round, but you know, Windsor, you got a body. He's going to be a rotational player. He might pan out, not likely, but anytime you can get fresh legs on the defensive line, it does help. All right, it keeps your better linemen fresh. So maybe throw him in a situation where you're not necessarily expecting something to come right up the gut or necessarily need immediate pressure. So you could just give one of the other guys a blow. That is really the extent of his use. Rogers, Patton, Glasgow, they're all, if they don't make it in special teams, they're not going to make it. So the top end of the draft is usually what you rate things off of because they're the more likely to make the team. And I gave them a solid B. I don't necessarily like the Pittman pick. I thought there were more talented players available that would have filled that need at that point. But I love the Blackmun and Taylor picks, especially Taylor. I think he's going to fit in fantastically. So, hey, tell me what you guys think. All right? I'd appreciate a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Hit me up in the comments. I've been responding to everybody as I can. And check out the other videos to see what I think of the rest of the team's drafts. Thanks for watching.